Come on in, people. We are talking condominiums as an investment strategy. As promised, I did say yesterday I would do a separate live about it and why I don't like condos in general as an investment strategy, even as a primary residence, unless you're in your golden stages in life and you just don't have it in you to maintain a property, right? So we're going to talk about condos and why it's not a good investment strategy, in my opinion. Now, you'll get people, realtors especially, that will say they disagree. You'll get people that say they disagree. It's a big country. Everything, everybody has an exception to a rule, but I like to talk about the rule because the rule usually encompasses a lot of people. And so I'm going to talk to you about what happens when you use a condo as a investment strategy. So I purchased my condo in 2010. Okay, so it's not too long after the housing market crash. I got a really good deal for it, and it was new construction. And so the person who is building this condo development, the developer, and we'll use the word sponsor interchangeably because the sponsor and the developer are usually the same, has to sell off the units in order to pay back their construction loan, right? Especially if they have one. Most sponsors, developers, they have one. And that's why you get a lot of new communities that want purchasers to go with their preferred lender, because their preferred lender is usually the lender that financed the project, and they want to make sure they get their money back, right? Fair enough. So I purchased the condo, and I did so because one, it was my first purchase. It was, in my mind, easier, which is false. It couldn't be more false. I lived in a building, single, didn't want to deal with lawn care, water, sewer, whatever have you. I don't want to deal with the maintenance that came with a home. Now, it was not meant to be an investment property, but I'm going to tell you how I became the accidental investor. So what happened is, it's a new development, and what happened is the sponsor developer, couldn't sell off the rest of the units. Having problems selling off the rest of the units, and in order to pay back the construction loan, he has to sell the units. So as a result, he went into foreclosure. And when a condo unit goes into foreclosure, what happens, particularly if it's new development and this was new construction, it goes into what you call receivership. Receivership is when a judge hands over the finances and the operations of the HOA community, in this case my condo, to a third party because there's a conflict of interest, right? You're in foreclosure. You can't any longer handle the finances, right? There's a conflict of interest. Now, what a lot of developers do, they artificially decrease the common charges so that the units can look appealing, right? Financially appealing. Oh, that's not bad. I don't mind paying that per month, right? The reality is they're using their own funds, some construction funds, to finance the operations, just to get people into the units to sell them, because that's a selling point, right? When you're purchasing a condo, the first thing a lot of people look at is the monthly fees, which is your HOA fees or common charges, right? For my co-op people, that would be your maintenance, right? Co-ops operate a little different. They have different rules that kind of bypass what you would go through with a condo. So I'll walk through as much as I can. And so it went into receivership. We didn't really know that, but the sponsor had to form a board, right? After a while, the developer or sponsor has to form a board, right? So I was on the board. Now, once the sponsor is removed from the operations, you start to see the real finances of the community, the HOA community. And what we found is that the common charges weren't enough to cover the operating costs per month. We had doormen, porters, we had a shuttle to the train station because we were in an awkward spot. We had elevator maintenance, just all kinds of, water heating. It was a very, very, it's a high rise, 60 units, 18 or so floors. And so very, very nice place, but there was a lot of unknowns that most people don't understand when you're purchasing a condo, because you think, oh, whatever, it's easy. No muss, no fuss. So when we got the condo finances handed to us, the board was formed, we saw the finances and we realized that the current common charges for the unit owners were not enough to cover operations, right? He was covering most of it with maybe construction loan proceeds so that he can lure buyers in with low common charges. And that happens, right? I don't think there's any law against it. If there is, please feel free to drop it in the comments. But that meant the board had to increase common charges because we didn't have enough to cover the monthly operations, paying the doorman 24 hours, things of that nature. And unfortunately, you can't not have certain things. Like, you need elevator maintenance, right? You need to have porters clean when it's raining and snowing. We're in the Northeast. You have to have things in place. Insurance, water and sewage has to get paid. The gym equipment has to be serviced, right? Elevator has to be serviced. Things just have to get done. And so my common charges and everybody else's went up significantly, just like that, right? Hey guys, the sponsor is actually in foreclosure, and we now have control of the condo of the HOA. We don't have enough money to cover the expenses, so your common charges will be going up. And then we had to hire a management company because the board doesn't want to do that, right? We did it for a little bit. I was the treasurer. I was paying the bills, but we have other jobs, right? We have to pay our own bills. And so my common charges went up significantly. And I'm not talking about $20, $30. I mean, it went up. Some people went up hundreds, right, per month. So you fast forward, and now you have a sponsor who went into foreclosure. So now what happens? You have an investor come in and purchase the leftover units, okay, for pennies on the dollar, because the bank just wants their money, right? They don't want to lose any money, so they're just going to recoup their funds, right? The sponsor's goal was to make a profit, but the bank is like, I just want my money. Like, you borrowed 10 million, whatever have you. I want my 10 million. You owe me 7 million now, or whatever have you. And so somebody comes in and buys the units for pennies on the dollar. So now you have an investor that owns, in this case, about 29 units, because the original sponsor could not sell off the units. So he comes out of foreclosure because he sold the units to an investor. And now that presents a different issue, okay? It presents two different issues. Now, the investor is not going to live in all of these units. The investor is going to rent them out, right? Makes sense. So what happens when you have an HOA community, in this case a condo building, where you have more units rented than owner occupied? Well, banks don't like that. So if somebody wanted to come in and purchase a unit from a current owner, right, an owner wants to sell, they can't get conventional financing because the condo community is now what you call unwarrantable. You have more people renting than owning in the community. Okay, that's a no-no because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guidelines won't allow banks. They won't back the loans of these banks in those cases. So banks won't give out the loan because they want to be backed by the government. So now you can't sell your unit if you want to. Okay. The second issue is when one person or entity owns more than 10% of the units, which in this case, you get two in the same, multiple rentals, and one person or entity owns more than 10%. That's another violation of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guidelines. That means, again, somebody won't get a conventional loan. So now I'm in my condo and I have an HOA that went up significantly, and that's eating into my only income source, which is my W-2. So I learned that I can't sell the unit because of these two guidelines, right? These two major guidelines. There's some others, but these are the two major ones. So I'm stuck. I'm trapped. That mortgage is mine and I can't unload it because somebody who's trying to get a conventional loan will not be able to due to these two main items that make the condo unwarrantable and therefore non-financeable. And so I ended up renting the condo out, right? But not before I learned about assessments. Assessments, unlike HOA fees, are non-recurring expenses. They're one-off expenses that happen that have to be taken care of. So things like we had a hot water heater system that wasn't designed correctly for the building, right? The appropriate engineers and architects weren't hired by the sponsor. Maybe he was trying to cut corners. Well, anyways, we had to have all of that redone, right? Otherwise, certain people wouldn't be getting hot water, right? It would be an issue, or heat. So again, that was a huge expense. If you don't have enough money to cover the basic operations of the building because you had to raise common charges, you certainly don't have money in reserves, right? Because the sponsor basically was handling the deficit. So unbeknownst to the owners and people who are looking to buy. So now you have a bigger situation. Now these assessments can last years, right? I had an assessment last years. We had a what we call local law 11, which is basically building codes, right? Permit codes that your building has to abide by. And that was up to $1 million between engineers, inspectors, all that good stuff, making sure everything was done correctly, which it wasn't, right? You have developers trying to cut corners, get C of Os. And so that cost falls on the unit owner. And that's not something you can escape. You can't just say, I'm not paying for it, because then the board can put a lien on your unit and force you to sell at some point. So there's that. So this is why I don't like condos as an investment strategy, right? Because now I'm stuck. And so my only other option was to rent the unit out, right? I had to shift the expense to someone else, whether short-term rental or long-term rental. I had to shift it out, right? And so I rented it, right? Contacted a broker. I said, I got to get this rented. I've got to get out of this situation. I need to, minimize my damage because I can't sell. So I ended up renting it out, and I became a landlord in 2013. Okay, 2013, I became a landlord. Somebody asked the other day, how do you learn to landlord? That's one of those things where it's on the job. There's nothing to prepare you for landlording. You're just landlord. You're just there. It's like being born into life. You're here. Work it out. So just as an example of why particularly new construction and condos can kind of not be the best or even a good investment strategy. It wasn't an investment strategy for me. It was my primary residence. It forced me to invest because I couldn't sell, which everything happens for a reason. Now I'm a landlord of multiple properties, right? I've learned my lesson. I learned about the banking system, the mortgage system for properties, and being a landlord and cash flowing. And of course, my background is tax, for those of you who don't know. And so I warn against condos as an investment strategy because it eats into your cash flow. You're vulnerable to HOA increases. You're vulnerable to assessments. And these are things that you cannot control. You can fight, scream, yell all you want to, but it's something you can be stuck with, right? And so to reiterate why I couldn't sell the unit, for conventional lenders to give a mortgage to someone purchasing a condo, they have to fill out a condo questionnaire. The questionnaire will determine if the lender will give funds to the potential buyer to buy the unit. And that is dependent on not just the unit, unlike your single family homes and your multifamily homes. It's dependent on the whole community, right? It's like a business. Yeah, you want a piece of this business, but we have to see how the whole business is doing. So if your condo community is screwed, right, meaning it doesn't meet Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guidelines, you have more renters than owners in the community, and one person or entity owns more than 10% of the units in the community, your condo is unwarrantable. Okay, and that's not even getting into reserves, which is the money in the bank from the common charges to cover any incidences that may happen that the bank deems as a risk, right? Just like when you get approved for a house, they want to make sure you have 3-6 months of reserves in the bank, right? It's the same thing. The condo becomes unwarrantable. I have an ebook that I'm going to release on it. I have in the past, but don't worry, I'll put it up this week so you guys can have it for your reference. It will be for sale. However, I just want you guys to understand that a condo is very, very risky. Co-ops are very, very risky. Now, most co-ops have what you call bylaws in place, right? Condos have bylaws, but specifically co-ops have bylaws in place a lot of times to prevent more renters than owners being in a community, so that you can have more transient ownership, meaning you can buy and sell easily. They prevent that with restrictions like, hey, you can rent this out for 2 years, but you got to move back in or sell, right? So it keeps people from purchasing a condo or a co-op, co-op as their first residence, and then upgrading, because people upgrade, they get married, they have kids, they buy a house, and they keep their first property as investment. And now you have a rental in a community where somebody might be living and can't sell, because now you have a bunch of rentals from people who didn't sell but kept them as investments. So co-ops usually have a good system in place for preventing someone getting stuck, right? Co-ops also have very high maintenance fees, and co-ops are not real property. Condos are real property, okay? So that's why there's different rules for condos. Or any HOA community, right? You can get stuck with a property in an HOA community, particularly if you have very high common charges. A buyer's not going to want to pay those common charges. They're going to make you account for it in your purchase price, right? In your selling price. They're going to say, okay, well, if I have to pay $800 a month now because you have a $500 a month common charge and $300 a month assessment that's not going away for 3 or 4 years, I want that made up in the price, right? So that's why I don't encourage it ever. I get a lot of pushback from people who say, that's not true. Mine is doing just fine. Yeah, yours. But the majority of condo owners don't experience things seamlessly. Okay? So that's the reason why I'm glad you guys are here to listen, because that is the truth. I want you to avoid everything I had to learn the hard way. So yes, I am a real estate investor. I'm a tax strategist first. I use real estate as a very high impact tax strategy tool. I'm here to tell you, if you don't like real estate, 99% of the wealthiest people in the world have their hands in real estate, whether they like it or not, because it is a strong tool for building wealth, and particularly through tax savings, more than cash flow, right? Through appreciation and tax savings, right? Cash flow is like bottom of the list when it comes to building wealth through real estate. It's your appreciation, which is phantom, right? But tax flow first, right? We have cash flow and what we call tax flow. I call it tax flow, your tax savings, okay? I have amassed millions in short amount of time in net worth by utilizing real estate and business ownership. Okay, land is not depreciable. You have to have a structure on the land, and it has to be for rent for you to benefit within the tax code. Your primary residence will not benefit you in the tax code. The tax code actually changed in 2017 to decrease the benefits significantly of primary residence home ownership and increased the benefits significantly of investing. Okay. So, do we have any questions? Las preguntas. I swear I'm going to get back to my Spanish, guys. Let's see if we have any questions. So yes, please think about, I don't do one-on-ones. Everything is done through the Tax Strategies Mastermind. The link is in the bio. I am a tax person. Although I get a lot of questions about parallel things that go with the activities that benefit within the tax code, and I'm happy to answer what I can, but I'm a tax person first. Okay? So if you haven't joined the mastermind, go ahead and click the link in the bio. It is tax deductible to business owners and real estate investors. Let's see, and happy Saturday. Let's see, any questions? Townhouses are usually HOA communities, so yes. It's a mess in Florida. Florida has some very high common charges. Some HOA fees for those condos, a lot, especially in Central Florida, very, very high. Yeah, the first thing I look at when I'm purchasing real estate is if there's an HOA, okay? If the property taxes are super high, if I have to pay for waste separately, meaning this, it's not included in the city, what my tax benefits are going to be, and if I can cover the carrying costs plus some reserves. Now, you're not going to get rich off of one rental, right? You're not going to be able to quit your job off of one rental, but it's a start. Okay, you got to be aggressive with it. And the ideal is to marry business ownership with real estate. And a lot of people will tell me, I don't really want to be a landlord. I don't want to be an employee. There's a lot of things I don't want to be, but I had to be to get here, right? So, pick your poison. Okay, it's not easy. Being a landlord is not always smooth. It does require work, but there's no, there's aggravation at your job. So. I'm also very preventative. I'm an auditor first. That means I believe in reducing risk. We cannot get risk to zero, but we can get it as close as possible to zero. That is my training. So I use lease protection insurance for my tenants. And to date, I've only had one eviction. And that's for a tenant that I inherited, not that I screened. And they were under my lease protection insurance, and I got my rent back once they were evicted. So. Let's see. I think I've answered all of your questions. Okay, so in my instance, the condo was, I want to say like 59 units or so, including the penthouse. And like 29 units were acquired through the foreclosure proceedings. That's a big chunk. So be careful of new construction. Be careful with common charges. Let's see if we get any questions. Okay, land itself is not expensed, or you cannot depreciate or expense land. You have to build a structure on it, and it has to be in use for business, so a rental. Right? Whether it's storage, an apartment, house, duplex, whatever have you, then you get the benefits. Did the tenant agree to pay the guarantee fee? Yes. They were not on a lease, which meant they were a little vulnerable, and this was not in New York. So they agreed to go on a lease, so I told them they had to go through my lease protection insurance, pay the fee, and they agreed. Okay. The mastermind is open enrollment right now, so you can click on a link in the bio and enroll. The next free live training is this Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I did end up selling the condo unit, and I could not get a conventional, somebody who needed a conventional loan to purchase. It had to be an all cash buyer, and you know what happens when you only appeal to all cash buyers? You've got to sell at a lower list price. Okay, so I did sell in 2022. Let's see. Yeah, so it can be, and it was a rough one. It was rough. because I had tenants in there because it was very expensive to carry. It was way too expensive not to have tenants in there until I found a buyer. So now you've got to interrupt the tenants. You've got to organize showings with tenants in there. It just was a nightmare. But I got through it. I went through the fire, I was the bad guy, the owner who, had to, interrupt the tenants' evenings and weekends because I had to get out of it. It was just killing my cash flow. So I like to tell that story because I want people to avoid what they think is easier. And a lot of times people think, oh, it's a condo, it's easy. The HOA fees take care of everything. Yeah, you got to pay those HOA fees. And all it takes is one slip, trip, and fall for your HOA fees to now go up. And especially, again, I tell this story because I want you to be careful of new development. Those HOA fees might seem nice now, but let the community actually fill up and the units actually fill up in the new development and see what the HOA is. All that glitters ain't gold. Sometimes it's just glitter. An HOA, your HOA is tax deductible if it's a rental. If you live there, no. All right. Go ahead and join my next live Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you. You're welcome. Okay, yeah, I do like to tell the good, the bad, and the ugly because the truth is, a lot of you don't want to be bothered, right? You hear a lot of horror stories of tenants. Somebody asked, do you have to have a certain personality? And the reality is you have a personality at work, right? You can't punch a coworker in the face. You got to send an email. It's the same kind of aggravation. You just have to, develop your interpersonal skills. Thank you, PG12MX. Right, you got to develop your interpersonal skills. And I've had to develop interpersonal skills. Okay, I came from corporate. From corporate to dealing with general population is very rough. You've got to learn how to talk everybody's language. Can I put my townhouse residence in an LLC and that becomes a rental? No. And I said this yesterday, I say this all the time. An LLC is a business designation. It is an entity. That doesn't make it a business. Operations make it a business. And you cannot put your primary residence in an LLC and claim it as a rental. That is asking for trouble. And once you get snagged in the IRS audit system, just don't. Just don't. Okay, I'm probably one of the few people that will tell you no. I don't mind disappointing you with the truth. I will tell you this. Operating within the tax code is the surest way to wealth, but it has to be legitimate. And it can be done legitimately. It can be done legitimately. If you're looking for instant gratification, not for you. The tax code, I teach in years, right? January 1 to 12/31 is a tax year, right? Most of us are calendar tax year people. So you have to work for 12 months to see the benefit the following year. And then you have to work 12 months in that following year to keep seeing the benefits, and then your net worth will automatically go up. That I can promise. Okay, it's not fast, but it's sure. Okay. Is the HOA tax deductible if you also do business in the space? So I talk about this a lot. The gray area. What applies to Elon Musk say or Warren Buffett doesn't apply to you. And I know this sounds very unfair and people get up in arms. Oh, big corporations do this. Yeah, they have economies of scale, right? Nobody's going to fight a tax attorney over certain things. They will fight you. They will fight me. They will fight a smaller business owner, and particularly you guys, because you don't have representation and you don't have the background. For those of you who don't know, I'm a former IRS agent of 13 years in large business and international division of the IRS. I examine large entities that report 10 million or more in gross receipts and assets, and the high net worth individuals associated with them. I hate saying this, but it's like in your family, the one sibling that gets better treatment than you. It's not fair, but it is so, and it's going to continue. That's how small business owners are treated. You're not going to get the same grace and mercy as somebody who has a lot of skin in the game, a lot of revenue, a lot of, taxable income reported. So when people ask me about, renting out space in their home for business and the Augusta rule and things of that nature, and I know that it is a thing, and I will tell you, this is the code. Yes, you can. However, I know you better than you know you. And I'll tell people, would you believe your story? If you wouldn't believe it, don't do it. I focus on high impact, and I focus on I focus on conflict of interest, right? I do rental real estate. I focus on the tax benefits because you have to get a cost segregation study for bonus depreciation. You don't make up those numbers. That is a firm that probably has a relationship with the IRS. They have engineers, they have professionals, and they offer audit support. And not only that, again, the report doesn't come from you and your receipts. It comes from an allocated cost. So an examiner is not likely to fight you because you didn't make this up. This came from actual professionals. Right? And you're going to get this huge benefit, right? I focus on business ownership. Nobody's going to fight me on whether I have a business or not when I have, $500,000 in advertising, right? Nobody says that's a hobby. I focus on things that nobody can have a conversation with you about. That's what I focus on. I focus on no combos. I don't want anybody coming to you saying, well. So that's why I always say things like, I don't care for the home office deduction. You can take it. It's your right to take. But 99.9999999% of the time, it doesn't move the needle for you enough to even put yourself in the pool of people to be audited. You get what I'm saying? It's not worth it. The $20 your refund goes up is not worth the 12 months of an audit, because it takes 9 to 12 months, and then they can pick up your prior year return and your subsequent year return. Let it go. Let it go. Some things you just gotta let it go. And people will disagree with me. Preparers will disagree with me. People who are, tax righteous will agree with me. Oh, you're entitled to it, so you should take it. Yeah, you can. But if you're asking for my professional opinion as someone with 20 years in audit, accounting, and tax, stressing audit and tax compliance, some things aren't worth it. If it's not moving the needle for you by thousands, and you get $40 more in your refund by taking home office deduction, let it go. Just delete it. Okay? Delete it. Okay? It's the truth. The reason why I teach is because I do focus on the gray area. A lot of preparers don't come from the IRS. They're CPAs. So they come from the preparation side, right? And believe it or not, very few of them have actually been a representative in an audit. I've been the person issuing the information document requests for the audit. I'm the one that does the sample size from your general ledger. I'm the one that asks for the proof. I'm the one that decides whether there's materiality in the audit, right? As a former agent. And to be honest, I've said this before, sometimes you get a good agent on a bad day and a bad agent on a good day. You'll have two separate people going through the two same audits in two different states with two different examiners, and somebody will get off with it and the other person will be going through hell. Is it fair? No. Is it so? Yep. That's life. I'm here to give you the game. So when people ask me, my first instinct is no. No. Now, when you're pulling in millions upon millions, you can do certain things without a fight, allegedly. Okay? Just some pregame. It's the truth. I'm very rigid. I'm very high impact. My students save from 40 to 50 grand a year, but it's very targeted, right? Very targeted. And I harass them. I'm going to harass them tomorrow on my live in my private Facebook group for my students. Very targeted. I don't, and no shade, I don't care about the child tax credit. All of that stuff is low hanging fruit, right? You got kids, you're going to claim them. That's not strategy. That's not strategy, right? You got medical expenses, go ahead. If it exceeds 7.5% of your adjusted gross income, go for it. 1040 is low hanging fruit, right? I don't, that does nothing, right? That does nothing but give you a false sense of gratification. It doesn't build your bottom line. High hanging fruit is the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, bonus depreciation, real estate professional status, short-term rental loopholes, business ownership. If you are in business and you're lollygagging, and I will do that on another live, you need to let go of that dollar, and you need to pump it into your business. That's high hanging fruit. Low hanging fruit is your ordinary income. You can take your child care expenses. Low hanging fruit, that's normal. That's not strategy. That's day to day, and it's a false sense of achievement. Right? It's a false sense of achievement, and it's almost an insult, right? Because it's crumbs. And I know people will say, well, I need those crumbs, and you do, but how long can you eat off of those crumbs? Right? If they're only going to feed you for what you think is tax season, right, which is really filing season, it's crumbs. And I'm here to let you know that that's an insult to you. You need to go for high impact. Okay, shout out to Oregon. Right? So I'm a very controversial person. On a lot of my earlier posts, I would get a lot of flack from my 1040 filers. We're all 1040, but the people who are W-2 who rely on the 1040. The reality is you gotta operate within a tax code. You will build wealth. It is a surefire way to build wealth. Sure. Is it going to happen tomorrow? No, it might take you a year, 2 years, 3 years. I curated my Instagram feed for a year before I released the Tax Strategies Mastermind because I had to prove myself, right? Knowledgeable, credentialed, communicative, articulate about the tax code. That's your business. You've got to curate your audience. Your tribe has to find you. And I lived meagerly, but I dumped my ordinary income into my business, into the money nista like nobody's business. And it was deductible, right? As soon as I released the Tax Strategies Mastermind, the floodgates opened. And a lot of you won't open the floodgates. You're overplaying it safe when you're not safe at work. Right? You may not have millions to contribute towards your business, but you do have money. Like the money that's coming out of your check from your withholdings, that's money that could be going into your business and you're just earning it back, right? It'll just be a refund. So Just a little tidbit. But yeah, getting back to condos, as an investment strategy, you will have people who will fight me tooth and nail. It's just not good, particularly when you are a newbie. It will hurt your cash flow. It will hurt your bottom line. It's important to make the best decisions you can starting out in real estate. And if you're going to ask me what that is a multifamily, okay, a duplex, a triplex, a quad. It may not be in your city. It could be in an adjacent city. It could be in your friend's city, your parents' city. It could be, whenever you're visiting your friend, take a day and go out with a realtor. I mean, do your research. I mean, there's free tools, realtor.com, zillow.com. Go look for a multifamily, right? And yes, as a landlord, you will have days of aggravation. You will have days where you're cussing like a sailor in your head. But aren't you at work? Aren't you at home with your kids and your husbands and wives? With your family? You're doing it anyway. Get paid to do it. Build your bottom line doing it. So, I don't see any other questions, but I definitely wanted to talk about condos and the pitfalls that a lot of people fall victim to. Okay. Fight me in the comments. There's always that one person that's like, not me. And, I find that those exceptions are banal. Yes, I'm going to say this live. Yes, I rebooted my iPhone for you guys because I'm a Samsung user. So I rebooted my iPhone dedicated for these lives. Do you think the association dues is worth it? Usually it's not. And again, it's always a risk because the increases are out of your hand. Okay? The increases are out of your hand. The HOAs are out of your hand. You can't control these things. Yeah, get paid to be aggravated. I'm not going to lie. I get aggravated all the time. All the time I'm aggravated. I mean, it doesn't last long, but it's like, really? Really? 4 of you don't have heat all of a sudden? Like, new hot water heater? I just got this place, right? So it happens. It happens, right? Good landlord keeps reserves. Okay. So the only time I would recommend a condo is if you're in your golden years, right? You're an empty nester and, I'm not climbing the ladder to clean the gutters, and I'm not paying somebody to clean the gutters. It's eating into my retirement funds, and, I can't walk up these stairs in this house. Go get you a condo. That's for when you're sunsetting in life, Okay. Let's see. Okay. All right, Arrington. Shout out to my students on here. I will be on live tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I fully expect my students that joined at least a month ago to be prepared with their tax files. Because we're already in 2024, wealth builders, we stay in current year. We don't grapple for deductions when the year is over. We're done. We already knew our tax liability in December, in June, in July, and August. We already planned for that. Okay, so for those of you just joining, we were talking condos and why we don't like them as investment strategies. I want to buy, have money to put away, but don't report much. You recommend a multi or a condo? I will never recommend a condo. I will always recommend a multifamily. Heck, I'll recommend a single family if it cash flows over a condo. Because if you ever want to unload the single family, you won't have to go through a 2-pronged process, right? Because lenders look, right? So it's really 3. The buyer, the unit, and the HOA means the whole thing. Sorry, I had poor connection, guys. Uh-oh. Can you guys still see me? Okay. Whew, I had a poor connection. Let's see. I'm on live, Mom, if that's you. Mom is visiting. My mommy is visiting. Multifamily require more capital upfront than a new investor may not have. Absolutely. However, if you utilize FHA, you can live in one unit and rent out the other one. And there's, I think there's a new program out for Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, where they have 5% down. So if you want to get into multifamily investing, you can live in a unit and rent out the other, and you still get the benefits of being a landlord, just not for 2 units, but for 1, which is better than none. So the Tax Strategies Mastermind has business activities, because a lot of times people will be in business without being in business. So you have to solidify yourself as a business, right? Defining your business activities. I go through each structure, LLCs, LLCs. Increase your advertising. You need to go ahead and buy that new computer. You need to go ahead and buy that new equipment. You need to go ahead and fix that bathroom in one of your units, whatever it is, whether it's real estate or investing. I go over planning and preparation, again, real-time tracking, tax avoidance in real estate, from capital gains, short-term rental, long-term rental strategy, building business credit, so lease protection insurance, all that good stuff. Sorry, I'm having a poor connection. So you can, if you are having an issue with upfront costs for purchasing an investment property that's a multifamily, you can utilize FHA, or you can utilize, I think there's new guidelines where you can put down 5% for conventional, and you live in one unit and rent out the other unit or units, and you still get the benefit of being a landlord from the unit or units that you actually don't live in. Okay, you still can benefit. Okay. I hope this didn't interrupt my live to save, because it was a really good one. Okay. I don't see any other questions. Again, before purchasing an investment property, I usually do a cost benefit analysis. I try and figure out, we use a cost segregation study firm, and they have a free online tool that can tell you what your potential first year deductions are. For those of you who don't know, cost segregation or bonus depreciation is just another word for additional expense, right? Additional first year expense that you don't pay. Like regular depreciation, you don't pay, you just get it because the government says, hey, this is an asset in service, we're just going to account for normal wear and tear, even though it's not depreciating. So bonus depreciation just gives you a huge upfront cost for items that are depreciable for under 20 years. So your 5-year and 15-year items, which is usually your appliances, your appliance wiring, your countertops, kitchen, cabinets, flooring, carpeting, ceiling, fans, blinds, your driveway, your fencing, your walks, so things of that nature. Okay, and it's a huge expense. Like, just to give you guys an example, one of my properties, I got like $120,000 in bonus depreciation as an expense, and that created this huge phantom loss because depreciation is a phantom expense, and then that loss offset my other income due to real estate professional status. Okay, any other questions? My class, are you talking about the mastermind, focuses on business ownership and real estate investing. Those are the 2 items that are favored by the tax code. Okay, that's the hierarchy. Everything else, secondary. I also go through retirement planning for business owners. For those of you who don't know, SEP and a solo 401k, you can contribute up to $69,000 this year, or 25% of compensation, right? Which is greater than $23,000 as an employer-sponsored plan, right? 23,500. I don't know what it is. Again, 1040 stuff. I don't care about. Okay. I focus on tax. So tax, the tax code for real estate and the tax code for business ownership. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys go. I'm gonna go hang out with my mom while she's visiting. And I'll save this live, so hopefully it didn't get cut off because of my poor connection. I hope not. But yes, I'm going to release my ebook on condos. The investment strategy, no. And I'm going to put the link in the bio this coming week for those of you who are interested in learning more about why I wouldn't choose a condo. I would never advise a condo. Okay, well, have a good Saturday evening. So I'm going to go ahead and be over 40 and eat some ice cream and put on my PJs and just watch movies. Okay. All right, guys. Have a great one.